Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Small Business Phoenix Rising. Our crusade is to provide small business owners the tools, insights, and mentoring needed to get through this tough time and back to being successful and profitable. So housekeeping, if we have just a small group, if you guys have questions during the presentation, the stuff that we're talking about, just go ahead and interrupt me. I'm fine with that. And just ask your question. And yeah. So we provide tools, insights, and mentoring, as I just mentioned. And so let's do a quick little update on Paycheck Protection Program. So who's got an update? You got anything, John? You got anything, Adam Cook?
I really don't have anything, and other than the second tranche has been signed now, and it's getting processed, I assume. I'm just working on spending the money now.
Right.
Now I have to pay my bills.
Okay, that's good. It's good to be able to pay bills. You got anything?
Yeah.
You got anything, Adam?
So I'll kind of say the same. We're just trying to make sure that we are jumping through the correct hoops to make sure it gets waived. The biggest thing I've heard for people who got declined last time, they're starting the process now of approval, and apparently it's not going so well. Apparently there's some portal issues between the banks and the SBA. So even though you may have been approved before, it still may take a little time to get your money. That's about the only update I have on that particular program.
Okay. All right. So anybody else want to comment on PPP? Anybody out there actually apply and actually get money?
I applied and I got rejected, and I think it was in error because it says, hold on, SBA will not fund payroll expenses for employees not principally residing in the U.S. So obviously we all reside in the U.S., but there's no way to reapply for it now. And obviously the alternative, or the other way to try and fight it, is to sit on hold for 5 or 6 hours, So I just think I'm probably going to walk.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, John, Stacy?
So what bank did you apply through?
That was through Chase.
And do you have a relationship with the banker there?
The turnover rate is so high, and it seems like it's somebody new each time, and I don't have anybody there that I can, email or anything.
Silly question. Do you actually have employees that are not in the U.S.?
No, all U.S. based.
So
I don't know.
It sounds. I was going to say, it sounds to me like when you put the application in, the wrong button was clicked, or the portal they were using automatically assigned the wrong value to that particular question, because that is a question that's asked. Have you actually tried to reapply through another bank? I'm not sure. I haven't heard of that, so I'm not sure if that's even possible.
I haven't. Everything that my business does is through Chase, and they had sent me an internal link where there was a pretty easy way to apply and stuff like that. It's kind of a daunting idea to try and do it through another bank and stuff.
If it's going to make that much of a difference for your business, I recommend going and checking out another bank. For me, I don't have a banking relationship with Amagi Bank, but Amagi put mine straight through. Now, there's people with Amagi that didn't get through because it ran out of money, but Amagi's process was pretty darn simple.
Yep.
And the only thing they ask that I do is I open up a checking account to put that money into. So I highly recommend them or one of the other local banks. Even I've heard good things about Wood Forest even. So
there's a bunch of community banks too that are getting things processed pretty quickly, and because they don't have a whole big backlog, they're getting it turned in.
And look, the issue that you mentioned about Chase, it's a documented issue that their process, even though it might have been easy online, or it may or not even been easy online, there's a lot of issues that have come from those Chase relationships. So it may be of value too. I'm not telling you to leave Chase, but I'm telling you to leave Chase.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
We also applied for EIDL. We did get that money.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, Stephen, what do you do? What's your business?
I buy and sell 18-wheelers, trucks and trailers.
Okay. So you actually have a real business that has a real tangible, product.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that should be pretty straightforward, you would think. So, yeah, all the good stuff that we've heard. Oh, go ahead, John.
Hey, Stephen, I'm really sorry, but if you owned a basketball team like the Los Angeles Lakers, you'd have been all set. They got 4.9 million. We got 0.
Dang it. I was just thinking about purchasing it too last month.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but did you get the full, how many employees do you have? And did you get the full 10 with the EIDL on that advance?
Is that to Adam or to John?
No, to Stephen.
Oh, I didn't do the EIDL. This
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't.
No.
That
Do
was John that done it.
EIDL ASAP. Because if you've got 10 employees, you can get 10 grand. We've got 3 employees. They gave us $3,000. It took about a week and it took about 2.5 weeks because the EIDL is actually controlled and administered by the SBA. And the SBA is right now trying to process more paperwork currently than they typically get in a 3-year period, is what I was told.
And if you have kids, add them to your payroll. No, it's funny that I say that from the standpoint, I was actually talking with my cousin who lives down in Florida. She actually does all of our social media and stuff. And she was joking with her dad, and her dad's kind of like a father to me. And they were kind of laughing about the fact that how I was going to say every single one of my kids was an employee, and our dog and our guinea pigs and everything else. But I didn't do that. And I will tell you, do not do that, because that'll get you in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of people, invariably, they're doing a lot of stuff that they probably shouldn't. Either you qualify for the money or you don't. I say that jokingly just because it's kind of a funny thing for them to think. It makes me wonder what they really think of me, but maybe that's it. So anyway, any other thoughts on any of the lending, any of the money? I mean, the idea here is just to share, because if you're able to figure something out and get money, let's share it with everybody else. So if there isn't anything else, we'll kind of move on. So last week on Thursday, we had the great John Stacy, who is joining us today with AdviCoach. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was talking to us. In fact, he actually is the 2019 AdviCoach of the Year, which is very prestigious. And he's already told us he's got it locked in for 2020. It's going to happen. He's going to be the 2020 Coach of the Year. He says, put money on it. Go to Vegas. He's going to do that good. Anyway, in his piece that he had last week, he talked about now is the time to communicate to our consumers. We're now coming out of this fog he talked about, and it's time for us to communicate, let our customers know that we're still in business. And that's a really, really super critical thing, because with the craziness, with everything going on, a lot of people are wondering, is this person in business, or is this restaurant going to open up? And when you drive around town, you can kind of see that. Most of us can kind of see that. So it's really super critical to start communicating. If you haven't been communicating, you absolutely got to get it going. Hopefully by the middle of May, towards the end of May, things should look reasonably similar to what we're used to, at least here in Texas. May not be that way in other states. If you're out of state, it may be a little bit different, but that's really, really important. So a couple things that he talked about is a couple different ways: emails, cards, newsletter, back marketing. What's back marketing, John?
That's just marketing to your prior customers that you've been doing business with over the last 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Video. And then we also talked about frequency of how often. So I'm not going to go through and rehash that, but what I am going to talk about is I'm going to talk about email today. I'm a big proponent of email, big proponent, and I'm going to show you why you should be as well, and really kind of help you understand that email is probably one of the most powerful ways to market, especially for dollar for dollar. Okay, so 5 things I'm going to show you about email. First of all, it's great to build relationships. The more frequent you are in sending out emails, the more competent you're viewed. And I talked about this just about a week ago, that this whole case study about the consistency leads to competency, that ultimately you don't even necessarily need to be good at what you do, but you need to be good at marketing. It isn't the best product that sells the most. It's the product that's marketed the best that sells the most. We talked about VHS versus beta. Beta ended up winning, or VHS won over beta. And for those of us old enough to remember what a VHS tape was or a beta tape was, beta was the more superior product, but VHS won out. You flip that, Blu-ray versus HD DVD, a little bit more recent. I had bought an $800 HD DVD player, and it's probably somewhere in some landfill as we speak because it did not win. Blu-ray won. Blu-ray was actually the better product. It was also backed by Sony, which is probably pretty helpful because they have their whole catalog on there. So it doesn't always work out that way, but in most respects, understand that it's the best product that sells the most, not necessarily, it's the product that's marketed the best that sells the most, not the best product. Okay, number 2, top of mind. And as we do this, as I go through this, if you guys have questions, please just chime in because I kind of go through it kind of fast. It's just my way. A good open rate for most emails is between 15 and 20%. That is kind of the standard. It sounds awfully low, doesn't it? But what they find is that as you consistently email over time, and if you have a list that you keep emailing to that's 2, 3, 4 years old, over time, 90% of all the people that are in your email list will open up at least one email. That is significant. And the reason that is significant is because at the end of the day, we're bombarded with a lot of marketing messages. We're bombarded with a lot of marketing message on products that we may be wanting to buy 6 months from now, maybe not today because the timing's not right, but we understand that we have an interest. A lot of us, and I don't know the exact percentages, but a lot of us will hang on to those emails. Even though we're not ready to buy today, we're not going to necessarily delete it. Or you have freaks like me where I keep every single email that anybody's ever sent me, especially if it's a marketing message, because I'm always looking for ideas. But most consumers understand that they may use your product down the road. May not be today, but at one point or another, when the timing is right, that's when they are going to get real interested in your product. And so if you're constantly emailing, even once a week, some businesses, and we talked about this last week with a restaurant with Phil, who's on here last week, he owns Pilatos, he should be emailing multiple times a week. You see it with Chili's, you see it with Macaroni Grill, you see it with all the big boys. This is what they do, is they consistently email a message, okay? So when we're ready, that's when we go into emails. That's when we open up and say, you know what, I'm actually interested in this particular product or service, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start looking at these emails and take a look at what their product service offering is. Okay. Number 3, it's inexpensive. For most of us, with most of our businesses, we are less than $100 a month. And I'm not talking about going out and buying email lists. That's probably not a part of this. And it's not really effective, and you got to be careful in how you do it and the way you do it, because you can run into spam laws. But once we start building a customer list, keep that list. Even at a minimum, if you have it in a spreadsheet, it's at least accessible, and you can import it to just about any email platform. And there's tons out there. Most of us have heard of Constant Contact, MailChimp. There's also iContact, Aweber. There's just tons of them out there. So, okay, ownership. You own the list. You own your contacts. It's very, very powerful. With most marketing, it just doesn't work that way. When you market other ways, you don't own the people that you're contacting and you're reaching out to. And number 5, this is a big one. is it beats social media. Hands down, more effective. And I'm going to pull from a McKinsey and Company study. And here's the actual study. And once again, somebody's got a dog. So hang on here, guys. All right, I'm going to mute everybody if that's okay. All right, there we go. All right, let me switch this back around here. Okay. All right, so here's the link. And a lot of you have asked me about sharing the slides. Absolutely, we're going to share them. It's going to be in the form of a video that once this meeting's done, I record it, I send it out in the form of an email, and you can get to all this stuff. And so if you don't need to copy this link or type it out because you're not going to be able to copy it anyway, but just Google email more effective than social media and it'll pop right out. 40 times more effective than Facebook and Twitter combined. That's what the study says. And it's true. And I'm going to show you why. And I'm going to make you a big time believer here. Okay. And if I can get permission, I'm going to make an analogy. You guys all right with that? Just nod your head. Okay. The heyday of airlines was back in the Pan Am days. In fact, they even did a TV show on this. And what ended up happening, it was the most glamorous way of traveling. Because prior to that, everybody traveled on trains. And as nice as those train cars were, very luxurious, you could go across the United States in just a matter of hours. In fact, you go from Chicago to New York on a train, and it's going to take you 24 hours or so, right? But on an airplane, you can do that trip in less than 2 hours, maybe 3, with getting in and out of the airport. And back then, and back in the 50s, when we all had these beautiful flight attendants and these good-looking airline pilots, and the food and all this great stuff. And it's not even like that today, but back then in the 60s and the 70s, it was pretty exotic and it was pretty glamorous. And what ended up happening in the 50s and 60s is people started to make predictions. They started to predict that the railroads were going to crash, literally crash, not actually railroad crashing, but the actual industry was going to be destroyed as a result of what was happening with the airlines. So the question is, did they? Kind of see, I'm probably setting this up. It's a bit of a hypothetical. And the answer is no. In fact, since the 50s and the 60s, railroad industry has grown by 3 times. Where it's grown, railroads, we don't really transport people anymore. I mean, you can do that, and there's these great trips that you can go from like British Columbia down to California, and you can pay like thousands and thousands of dollars. Very, very expensive. But railroads is the most effective, cost-effective way to move freight from point A to point B. There is nothing more effective to do that other than maybe, this is a Houston thing, than a pipeline to move oil. Pipelines are the most effective way to move gas, natural gas and oil. But in terms of freight, consumer goods, everything that we see in Walmart, the most effective way to move it is through freight, is through the railroads. And that's why it's grown 3 times. Now, the reason I bring that up, and I point this up, is because you have a lot of people out there with very limited historical perspective that are saying, you got to jump into social media. It's the newest way. You got to get into the marketing, you got into all the funnels and all this other stuff. And they keep reinventing terms for what a marketing campaign is. That's what they call today a funnel and all this other stuff. And it's very exciting and it's very cutting edge. But the point I'm making is exactly what is social media. Okay, so we've got a billboard here. What's clogging your pipes? Not quite sure if I would do this one, but it is kind of funny. But let me tell you right now, social media is a billboard. When you think about it, Most people that go to social media go there to catch up with friends, relatives, post pictures, whatever it is. Maybe there's even a little bit of stalking going on and checking out your old girlfriend from 20 years. There's all sorts of stuff like that going on social media. And people have a purpose when they go to social media. So just like when you're going from point A, you're going to drive from Houston down to Orlando and you're going to go to Disney World, you're going to see a million billboards, right? But what's your real purpose when you leave Houston and you're going to Orlando is so you can go to Disney World. That's what you're thinking about. And it just so happens that you start seeing these billboards. And if you go through Louisiana, if you've driven that part, you will see a ton of billboards about attorneys, personal injury, PI attorneys, talking about if you've been in a car accident, truck accident, please call me because I'll get you millions and millions of dollars, okay? If the message isn't really applicable to you, you ignore it. And that's the problem with billboards. That's the problem with social media. Everybody wants to get in there. And I say that, and look, and I'm not trying to beat up on social media. I do a lot of stuff on social media, but I do the right things on social media, and I'm going after it for a particular purpose. It isn't to convert customers. It isn't to make an offer to people. It's to establish more credibility. So back to email. And I've got a bunch of different kind of email samples here. And any questions on this thus far? And I know I'm pretty strong when it comes to the social media, but you've got a lot of people that's all they talk about. I mean, and it's usually in the form of a person that's between 20 and 27 years old, and they're all excited about this, and they've been liking and posting and doing all this crazy stuff their whole life as they were growing up. And somehow now they're an expert on social media on how to bring in revenue, how to bring in business. The one thing that we need to remember, whether it's email, whether it's social media, whether it's billboard, direct mail, on the internet, pay-per-click, organic search, all of these things are different media platforms, and that consumers buy for the same reason on those different platforms than as they've bought for hundreds of years. The strategies that worked in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when marketing and advertising was somewhat invented, because that's when we really had this evolution of the printing press and you could put out information, really started with that time period, and those strategies still work today. The medias have changed, right? I'm pretty sure nobody advertises in the yellow pages, at least the physical yellow pages anymore. I mean, I don't know if you can even find it, it's just not there. But the strategies still work. They're the same. They're the same on social media. If any of you remember comic books back in the 1970s and how popular they were on the very back page, they would have all these things that you could enter in for a drawing that you could possibly win. They would ask for your name, your phone number, and your address. They were collecting your information so they could keep marketing to you, and you would subscribe to it, and suddenly you might win something, but more specifically, you would get a ton of information based on what you were interested in. It's no different today. It's the same thing. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to kind of tease for our next meeting. Our next meeting, we're going to go into and we're going to talk about effective email campaigns. That's going to be Thursday. And here's 3 things. Effective email campaigns, they focus on the journey. The more information that we give, and we can do these emails sequentially and kind of tell a message all the way through, the better off they are. It's not to say that every single person is going to read every single email that we send out. That's understandable. They're not. Number 2, get personal. Especially in this day and time with what's happening right now, there's nothing wrong in saying, hey, I'm kind of struggling, but to let you know, we're going to take care of you. You're our customer. There's a lot of credibility that can come across with being vulnerable. And we get that credibility often at times with being vulnerable. I'm not talking about talking about a past relationship from 20 years ago that you went through 3 years of therapy. I'm talking very specifically current time. We're all kind of wondering what in the heck's going to go on and how this is going to work out. And communicating that kind of a message is an okay thing. Okay. And number 3 is to have fun. The more interesting, the more funny, the more enjoyable your messaging is, the more the consumer wants to engage with it. There's a reason why when we sit down, a lot of us, when we watch the Super Bowl, some of us are actually more interested in the commercials than they are the actual game. And it's because these companies spend millions and millions of dollars on these ads. And I'm still, to this day, I'm trying to figure out what a goat has to do with Doritos. And if you remember, that was a huge thing 3 or 4 years ago where somebody was, had all these ads about Doritos and a goat eating the Doritos. But funny, enjoyable, rememberable. Any questions? So I'll go ahead and open up. I went through that kind of fast. I guess that's just, I go through it fast. I'm going to unmute anybody. So John Stacy.
Yes, sir.
What do you think? Email, do you do it?
Yes, probably not on a regular enough basis because it takes time. It takes time and effort. If you're trying to do it yourself, you've got to develop your own content. So that becomes a little bit of a challenge. So if you're not doing it on a regular basis, obviously you're not consistent. So therefore, I'm not sure what the value is if you can't be consistent.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, consistency is the key. If you figure that you should do 1 email a month, then be consistent. Be consistent for the next 3 to 5 years. If you think it's 1 a week, do it one a week and do it for the next 3 to 5 years because it will pay off. It will pay off exponentially.
So is there anything based upon the business that someone should be doing? I mean, you mentioned Phil and restaurants. Well, restaurants, they've got lots of products. It's specials on a daily basis. There's a lot of things that they can send out to their clients. I'm looking at, let's see here. I think, was it Steven or something that was here a second ago that sells trucks?
Yep, he's still here.
Okay, so there you are, down there someplace. Okay, so it looks like he sells large trucking equipment, trailers, semis, and that kind of stuff. I think used.
Yeah.
So that's not the same. I mean, from a business perspective, that's obviously not the same as a restaurant. A restaurant, people eat every day. On a truck, they buy it once every X amount of years. So how do you decide what the right frequency is for the type of the equipment, the type of offer, the call to action? How do you kind of think about that?
Well, okay. So when we're marketing to our customers, the best thing that we can do, and this is hard because we really have to think it through, is we need to get in their head and we need to be a part of the conversation. So every industry is different. You would not want to send out the same emails that you do, and especially the frequency with a restaurant as you do with a trucking company. Stephen, the closest thing I've ever done is I did a bunch of work for a heavy haul company, and they would transport big, windmills and oil wells and that type of stuff all over the country. And we concluded that it was probably a little too much to email more than once a week. And even then, we even kind of wondered if once a week was a little too much. But we came up with this one caveat that we in getting into the customer's head, we found things that were of interest to them. And what I mean by that is when we email, we don't necessarily need to be saying, hey, here's my product, here's what's great about it, and please buy it. Most of the time we should probably have a call to action or an offer, as we call in marketing, but it's not about, hey, do you want to buy? And then a week later, do you want to buy? Hey, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy that? It's not about that. It's about building the relationship, because you will turn people off if you continually do that. So what we did with them specifically, and we do this almost with most of our customers, because sometimes it is hard to find enough material to be able to send out there, other than the fact that you start regurgitating the same stuff over and over and over again. So if you Google alternative calendar days of the year, you will see every day of the year has 2 to 3 holidays. One of those holidays is Talk Like a Pirate Day. Another is Chocolate Lovers Day. One is called Drive an Ugly Truck Day. It's a guy thing. It literally says that. That is very applicable. And you can do fun stuff. And you can send that email and say, hey, just wanted to let you know it's Drive an Ugly Truck Day. It's a guy thing. Hey, send us a picture of your most ugly truck that you've ever owned or you see on the road. And we're going to send you brownies, send you a chocolate bar. And if you do brownies, that's Lori Ash. We'll send out cards. She's on here with us. But,
Yeah.
Plug for her. But
Thank you. Thank you.
Here you go, Lori.
you want to do something that's fun.
See?
There you go.
John
There's
has
the
brownies.
Good job. You want to do something that's going to engage them. They don't necessarily want to be sold, but once again, we all buy from people we know, like, and trust. And as we give them content that's funny, that's enjoyable, and we understand who they are, the sense of humor that people that buy trucks, right, is going to be a completely different sense of humor than a bunch of women that are going to the beauty salon. It's completely opposite, right? In some ways, they might find kind of the same stuff funny, but in opposite, right? To some extent. So you have to get into their mind. You have to understand. You got to do a good profile. You know, identify their pain points. What do they worry about? What do they laugh at? Yeah, there's a lot of demographics, psychographics. You just need to know your customer. And if you've been in your industry for a while, you know that customer. There's no rocket science to this. You just have to know who they are and what the way they think, and you know what keeps them awake at night, what makes them laugh. These are the things that you want to address. These are the things that you want to send out. So
I've noticed when you said consistency, it reminded me the emails that I get that tend to be more routine, I do pay attention to. Like,
Yeah.
I get one that's on a Monday morning before work starts. I know that every Monday morning it's going to be there. That one's related to my industry. There's another one that's a jewelry company that sends me emails that my wife said that she liked, and I signed up for their email so I can get her something on her birthday and Mother's Day from the same place because I know she likes it. I pay attention to that one too, but the ones that maybe come irregularly or interrupt the middle of the day, it's get out of here, you know, and just delete, and just don't tend to have time for it, you know. But the ones that I know when they're going to be showing up because, you know, they're typically on the money, tend to pay a little bit more attention to them.
yeah, absolutely right. And that's the key. And one thing, and we didn't talk a lot about this, and we're going to actually address some of these things. What is today, Tuesday? We're going to do more of this on Thursday and go into some actual detail on emails, layouts, what you should do, how you should do it. Is with all of these platforms, they allow you to use what is called an autoresponder. And what that really is just an email drip and a campaign that you can actually go in and build a full year's worth of emails in advance. And so when you have those built, once the consumer has gone through that full year worth of emails that year, you can just put them right back to the beginning of it, because they're not going to remember. I mean, it's maybe a little bit different, obviously, depending on what the product is. Phil, if you want to run your pasta dishes, your other foods in a very calendar type year specials, that would be great. But most of us will have content that once the consumer's gone through the full year, you just start them all over again. So once it's built, and I talk a lot about this, it's so foundational. Once the piece is built, you just keep using it. You just have to have the discipline that every time you get a contact coming in, add them to the email list. And which, by the way, you know, and I know for years, there's been this huge lockdown on who you should email to, who you can't. The law states now that if it's implied, as far as the contact is concerned, meaning that if someone hands you a business card, that is enough. And their email's on it, that is enough, and you can email them. Does that make sense? Because for a lot of people, I don't know if I should send, no. If they hand you a card, or if you've had like a phone conversation, their information is public, you can email them. You don't need to say, hey, Jim, would it be all right to send you some emails? I promise you, I won't send you more than 5 a day. You do not need to say that, okay? And you don't want to send anybody 5 a day. I'm joking, but I say that all the time. As a marketing guy, we send out tons of emails. We do it for our customers as well. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Was this helpful? I hope it was. Okay.
I can think of one kind of last question, maybe to wrap it up. And on the subject line, how important is the subject line to get people to read something?
Very much. Very important.
It can be, but subject line is trumped by consistency, and Stephen nailed it, because he's saying, because when he has an email come in, he's looking for specific emails that come in at the same time of the day, and the same hour, same time. That consistency is far more important, because a lot of times when we're going through our emails, unless it's something that really, really is going to captivate us, a lot of times we just gloss over the subject. Now, if we're actually somewhat moderately interested, we're feeling the pain. Remember, we make decisions based on either feeling pain or something that we're going to get gain. If we're and the pain is the bigger motivator. That when we're feeling the pain, that's when we start looking at the subject line. And that's where we're looking to offer a solution to their problem. So John Lansbaum, right now, he's getting ready to market to a bunch of realtors. We were talking about this yesterday. And he has a flooring company. And for him, realtors are absolutely perfect to refer, for them to refer him business, because they know the condition of the house. It's one of the things when you're actually doing residential real estate, the biggest bangs for the bucks are flooring and paint. And I don't know, I'm not an expert on real estate, but I know flooring and paint are very important, landscaping. It's one of those things that if you put the money into the flooring, into the carpet, into the hardwood floors, you're most likely going to get it out. And you're also going to sell your house a lot quicker, right? The pain point that most realtors have with this and with the flooring company, and specifically coming into this next period of time when we're, going to get things back to normal, is how many of these flooring companies are stable enough to actually stay in business? Are they so behind on their product that they're not able to catch up? Have they not paid their employees or their subcontractors? I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are going to go out of business because they don't have enough cash. They're not positioned the right way. And so what's going to end up happening invariably with a lot of these realtors is somebody that they've been using for the last 10 years is going to mess up. They're going to screw up. And that's the pain point. And when they mess up, it just so happens that John's here. And hey, by the way, we can take care of this and we know it really well. And have you talked to us before with the flooring nerd? You have to understand that that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people when they get to the point where I cannot do this anymore. I got to do it differently. I got to go with someone else. That's when they make the change. And if you're there and you're offering up a solution, you're good. I always refer to marketing as being, and I apologize to the women, but the women get this as well. It's like dating the hot cheerleader in high school. You're just never going to get that date with her if you go right at her. But once you find out she's had a fight with the quarterback on the football team and she's all upset, you come to her and say, hey, I heard you kind of had this blowout. I'm really sorry about that. But I just wanted to let you know I have these football tickets. It's this football team up in Dallas. It's right on the 50-yard line. I get them from my dad. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're called the Cowboys. I guess it's kind of a big deal. But if you'd like to come with me, I'm going next week. Just a friend thing. I know you probably just need to get your mind off. We know exactly what we're doing when we do that and we proposition somebody. And it's the same thing with marketing. We don't come at people really hard and say, you got to buy, this is the best. I mean, you want to say that you're good at what you do, but anyway, that's the point. All right. Anything else? I'm going to kind of wrap it up. Hopefully Yes, please.
But no, Mr. King, I completely see. The crazy thing is the last couple of weeks I've been hearing you, but yesterday I finally like actually saw it. So my company, for Quality Life Chiropractic, we're doing a bump day, and we had to reorganize it so many times because of all the regulations. Well, a usual shopping strip that we go down to, that usually everyone will give us some swag or give us something, that I live across the street from, assuming most of them are still open, there's like 3 or 4 of them that are out bankruptcy and that are planning just not to come
Yeah.
back. Like, I've been watching the shopping plaza for a year, you know, and just doing the physical walking down, seeing who's open,
Right.
seeing who's even willing to give me swag. Like, there was
Right.
a big handful of people that were like, simply, we don't have any cards or posters or anything because we don't even know what we can supply. There's
Right.
2 other restaurants that have a conserved control menu because they're having delivery issues still.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, I know the news has been kind of being quite on the quiet side, but it's kind of being well known now that unfortunately this virus is hitting, you know, it's hitting the food chain.
Right.
We don't know if we're gonna have meat soon because all the meat plants and all this the different steps of the
Right.
food chain is getting, you know, corrupted and disturbed and delayed. So it was, at least my 2 cents was, it was really interesting to see what you were saying and then finally like not be shocked by it, but understanding the flow and the process of just the effect of
Yeah.
this delay.
Yeah, especially with so much uncertainty, nobody knows who's still going to be in business. So that's why it's so important to communicate. I'll tell you one more story and we'll end with this. Years ago, it's probably about 10 years ago, I started working with a pizza place. Very good pizza. I grew up in New York City and Long Island, was a little boy. I know what good pizza's like. And this place, even though it was out west, had good pizza. And I asked them, I said, look, you know, I'm just curious, just local, just in and around where you guys are at, how heavily have you marketed? Have you gone to the movie theater? Have you gone to the businesses that are here in your strip center? Have you gone to the strip centers next to you? And they say, oh yeah, everybody knows this. Everybody knows, you know, we've been here for 2 years. Everybody knows this. And I said, okay, well, if you're okay, let me put together some flyers. Let me put together a coupon. And if you're okay, I'll just hand them out. It's not going to cost you anything. I just want to see, you know, kind of what the response is and see if we can get a few people in here off the coupon, and that'd be kind of good. You guys be okay with that? And but knowing that what they were thinking wasn't correct, I was trying to show them in real time what was really at play. So I went out there, I took the coupons, and I kid you not, just in the next strip center, there were 6 businesses, just a little strip, and 4 of the 6 places there didn't even know of this pizza place that was within a stone's throw of their own businesses. And the problem is that we get so internalized with what it is that we do that we think we're really good. And specifically with these guys, if you've ever owned a restaurant, and Phil can attest to it, your restaurant is your life. You live there. Other than the fact that you go home, the only thing you do when you're at home is sleep. But everything else that you do in your life, for the most part, is at the restaurant. That's where you meet people. That's where you have friendships. That's where you know, of course, you eat, all of this stuff. And that's what their life consisted of. So they kind of superimposed, and it's this inside perception, outside reality. Their inside perception did not match up with what the outside reality was. Consumers did not know about them, even though they traveled to the restaurant every day. They were showing up at 10:30 in the morning. They were staying there till 10:30 at night. There were many people just within walking distance, within a stone's throw, that didn't even know that they were open. And so it was jarring for them. I got to help them open up their eyes a little bit and realize, hey, yeah, you know, we've got a great product. I get it. But I guess apparently there's not as many people out there that know about it. Once again, it isn't the product that sells the most. It's the product that's marketed the best that sells the most. So please remember that. Please do your emails. If you guys ever need help with that, please reach out to me. I have a company called Pinpoint Marketing. You can also email through Small Business Phoenix Rising. Thank you so much. Next Thursday, we're going to go through and we're going to start showing you what are good emails, what aren't so good, and show you actually a whole series of emails as well. So it'll be some good information. So thank you so much.